Joe, didn't mean to call you out on that there. Excellent. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Emerging Leader Circle Lunch and Learn today. We're going to be talking about some, what we started, I guess, was family financial security, and what it's kind of morphed into is an adulting workshop. And so today, we're so lucky to have Tanner Tedsen with the Tedsen Insurance Agency here to talk to us about insurance, to make insurance more clear, to help give you some things to think about with regards to insurance, and hopefully get you on track to making sure that your assets are covered as you move forward in your life. So you guys know me. I'm Greg Lucchina with David Ling Real Estate, the host of these events, along with the Emerging Leader Circle. And ELC is a group of early to mid-career professionals, and we're out here to make a difference in Santa Cruz County through connection, through volunteer activities, and through different events like this, giving resources back to folks in our community to help them grow and thrive and prosper in Santa Cruz County. So if you want to become a member of our group, you will get a follow-up email after this with the link to download the presentation. And there will also be some sign-up opportunities here. Our membership fee is a very reasonable $100 for the year. And that goes back to the United Way, the Well of the United Way, to help provide opportunities for the youth across Santa Cruz County to grow and thrive, just as we're providing opportunities here. So with that, I'm going to let our speaker, Tanner, introduce himself. He's a very unique story, long-standing Santa Cruz resident, long-standing Santa Cruz family. So we're really excited to have Tanner here. So with that, I'll kick it over to Tanner, let him introduce himself and what he does in Santa Cruz.
Perfect. Sounds great. Greg, thank you so much. And United Way, thank you so much for putting this on. I really appreciate everyone's time today for jumping on to learn something. There was something that Greg just said that really stood out to me, and that was that the goal of Emerging Leaders and United Way is to make a difference in this community. And that's what we're all about at the Tedsen Insurance Agency. Like Greg was saying, our family's been in Santa Cruz County since the 1950s. Every generation has been different types of business owners, and now we're carrying on the legacy through an insurance agency. And it really gives us the opportunity to work with such a variety of people, you know, from commercial clients and business owners to families to friends. And the whole goal of what we do is just to make sure that our neighbors and our friends and the people in our community have the coverage they need for when stuff does happen, because, you know, we all know that accidents happen and you can protect yourself against it. So that's our purpose at the agency here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tanner. And I know you went away right to Boulder to school. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I've bounced around a little bit. I had kind of a few different careers during my lifetime. I was actually a firefighter EMT in Santa Cruz here before heading off to college in Colorado. Went to school out there, absolutely fell in love with the state. So spent about 5 years in Colorado, moved back to Santa Cruz about 6 years ago now. And was kind of, you know, figuring out what the next step was. And my mom, actually, Trish Ward, who I think is actually on the call with us today, she had been an owner of a farmer's agency for about 12, 15 years. And she brought the idea up to me of getting involved. So her and I partnered up for the first few years and, you know, really learned on my feet. Got in close with the district manager with farmers here in Santa Cruz, and he pretty much taught me everything that he could to give me the tools and the knowledge I needed to take it and run with it. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we brought on my brother, Chase Tedsen, who is on the call as well. Thanks, Chase, and mom, Trish Ward, for jumping on here today. So we brought Chase on, and he has taken over our entire commercial sector of our agency. So anytime someone needs a business owner policy, work comp policy, commercial auto, things like that, Chase is the man. He's really, you know, taught himself everything there is to know with the products that we offer. And he's an expert at what he does. So having the three of us, it's a really good dynamic. Not only are we family, we're all equal partners, and we all kind of have our specialties within the agency to better serve the people we work with.
Very cool. And we, as you know, I'm a sucker for a family-run business, given my relationship to David Ling Real Estate. So it's so great to see you guys thriving here in our community. So,
Yeah, most people think we're crazy for doing it, but it works.
yeah, exactly. Very good. Well, cool. So most of us on this call are early to mid-career professionals. And I know you just mentioned you work with a variety of different people. When you're sitting down and working with early to mid-career professionals, what are some just broad insurance topics? And I think we'll dive into those specific ones, but what are kind of the broader insurance topics that we should be thinking about when we're sitting down to think about insurance?
Totally. So at our agency, our whole goal is to offer total protection. We don't want to make sure that your home policy is dialed in, but then your auto is lacking coverage in one area or another. So we really look at the whole picture. And that's a rare thing in the insurance industry. A lot of the time, people specialize in one product. That's all they do. They take care of that one policy for you, and then it's on to the next. For us, it's all about building a relationship with the people we work with to really know what matters most to them, so we can figure out how to cover them in the right ways. There's four main categories that I look at when assessing risk, and those are homeowners or renters, depending on your situation, your auto insurance, your personal liability insurance, which is oftentimes called an umbrella policy. You'll hear that term pretty often in the industry. And then the fourth one is life insurance. So we take a look at all of those different angles, make sure there's no gaps, and really give you the total protection you need. Our goal is to give you the peace of mind to go out and live your life and not have to worry about things like your insurance, because you're working with the team that has your back. And if things do hit the fan, they're going to be there right behind you, making sure everything's okay.
Cool. Well, I know over this past year how important home or where we live has, become, obviously, with regards to the shelter in place that we've been under for over a year now. I know as restrictions loosen, we're able to get out of our house a little bit more, but maybe starting there and kind of talking about, what we should be looking for specifically from a renter's insurance policy. If somebody is a renter and they're looking to go in and get renter's insurance, what are certain coverages that they should look for? Maybe is there a coverage, an idea of dollar value that you should look for in your coverage? Is there something that you would give as recommendations, or kind of walk us through what you're looking for in a renter's insurance policy?
Definitely. So, renter's insurance is one of our most popular policies that we offer. It's an extremely affordable option to get coverage for your personal property, number one. So we can cover your property anywhere in the world. So say you're traveling and a camera is stolen from you, stolen out of your bag or something like that. Your renter's insurance can cover that. The second and probably most important part on a renter's insurance policy is your liability. So this is going to cover you if you are at fault for something such as a fire. We actually just recently, in this past month, we cover a apartment building over in Capitola, and one of the tenants in there caused a kitchen fire, completely totaled their unit and the unit below them. Unfortunately, they didn't have any renter's insurance. So we're looking at probably a $250,000 to $300,000 bill to get all that work completed, to get that apartment put back together. And that's going to have to be paid out of pocket by that tenant. So you can actually get coverage within your renter's insurance policy to pay for things like that. A limit I would recommend for liability is $500,000. That's the max we can write on a renter's policy, and it increases your premium by about $15 per year. When we're looking at premium, it's about $15 a month for a renter's insurance policy. Depending on the amount of coverage you need, if you need additional personal property coverage or anything like that, it might increase a little bit, but it is the most affordable option out there to get you coverage that we all can use and, have used. I've used renter's insurance myself. We had a couple bikes stolen out of the yard, and they were high-end mountain bikes, worth about $10,000 total. I had a farmer's renter's policy at the time. They came out within a week. I had money in my bank account a week after that, so it not only will protect your personal property, but it makes sure if something really, unforeseen happens, such as a fire, that you're going to be okay. You're not going to be paying that bill, that liability for sometimes the rest of your life to meet that obligation.
That's really great. And I know I was blown away to hear how affordable renter's insurance was. It's been a number of years since I have been a renter. So when we kind of had a pre-call, I was blown away to hear only about $15 a month for such robust coverage that you guys can provide. So, next off, jumping over to the homeowner side, some of us are homeowners here. Kind of walk us through what we should be thinking about homeowners. And I know specifically one thing that we've seen with the recent fires in our area. Obviously, homeowners insurance has it's been stripped down by certain insurance agencies or insurance companies. It's been, there's been people who were quote unquote underinsured. Maybe talk about some things that, if we are homeowners or going to be homeowners, or maybe have friends or family who are homeowners, what we can kind of talk to them about with regards to our homeowners insurance policies.
Yeah, for sure. So probably the number one call we get at our office is, can you insure homes in the Santa Cruz Mountains? A lot of people that live up in the SLV area are running into this issue where their policies are being canceled on them, or if it's a new purchase, they're calling around to 10 different agencies and can't find anyone to write their home. So that's a really important part of our agency, is that we can always find coverage for people. It can be expensive, but we can get you the coverage that you need. And the past fires, something that we saw happen to a lot of people, which is my worst nightmare being in the insurance world, is people were underinsured and their homes burnt down and they weren't able to rebuild what they had. Imagine working for something your entire life and you put all of your hard-earned money into it, and then a fire comes through and you have no control. You're evacuated, you have no idea what's happening to your home. You get back there, it's burnt down to the ground, and you only have enough coverage to rebuild half of it, or to build it, half the size or a lesser quality grade. So for us at our agency, we write a minimum of $500 per square foot in rebuild coverage. So that means if you have 1,000 square foot home, we're going to insure that to $500,000 to make sure that you can rebuild if something does happen. Homeowners insurance has so many ins and outs when it comes to the different types of coverages that you can add, that it's really specific to each property. So we specialize in really doing the homework and figuring out exactly the details of that property. If it's on a septic system or if it's on sewer system, and adding different coverages for those different things. Homeowners insurance, a lot of people can cut corners and send you a quote and not get all the details that they need to provide the coverage that you need. So our goal is to make sure that if it does happen, you have the coverage there that you need and that you can get put back together.
Great. Yeah, I know it's been something in our industry, especially after those fires happened, really slowed down and stopped a lot of real estate sales. And I know recently Tanner's actually helping a client of mine right now. We're going to be closing on a property in Bonnie Doon on Friday. And he's actually found them a great insurance policy at a reasonable price up there to help get them, so you can't actually get insurance in some of these areas that were impacted by the recent fires, even though some people are telling you no. So
yeah, there's always an option. We can definitely always make something work for you. So if you know anyone that's either getting canceled or is just fed up with who they're currently working with, we can find them coverage.
Great. So jumping over to auto insurance, obviously, I think most of us have cars, especially here in Santa Cruz County. I guess imagine if maybe you live downtown, work downtown, you might be able to get away without having a car, which would be pretty nice. But what are when you're looking at an insurance policy, obviously, we see commercials, hear commercials all the time about, lower your insurance rates, those sorts of things. And I'm sure they're probably stripping down some of the coverages. What are some things, as somebody who's, driving around in a car, and myself, probably more than most people, given my business, what are some things that I need to be looking for as a coverage in my car policy, and what are some minimum coverages that really I should be looking for to protect myself and my family?
Yeah, so we've all seen the commercials, right? Save 15% on your auto insurance and then different things like that. And a majority of the time when companies are offering lower rates, it's because there's less coverage in there. And as someone who, might not know what they're looking for or what they're looking at in their insurance policy, you can get yourself into a situation where, yeah, it's going to be a cheaper premium, but you're not going to have the coverage you need if something does happen. People say that they have full coverage all the time, and that's kind of a myth. So what full coverage means is that you have liability coverage. So that is the coverage that will pay out if you're in an accident and injure someone. It'll pay for their medical bills and their loss of wages. And then the other two coverages that give you full coverage are comprehensive and collision. So comprehensive coverage is for your vehicle. This is for non-accident type situations. So say like a tree falls on your car or something like that, that'll be paid out through your comprehensive coverage. Your collision coverage, again, this is for your car. So say you're in a minor fender bender and you need a couple $1,000s of repairs to your vehicle. it'll pay out through that collision coverage. So those three together, in a sense, that is what full coverage is. But that doesn't mean that you have the coverage you need. The most important thing on your auto insurance is your liability limits. So liability, the state minimums were set back in like the 1950s, and they're $15,000 per person in bodily injury. So we've all heard of scenarios and situations where, someone was injured and their medical bills were just through the roof. I had a friend who was in an accident and broke his leg. It was about 3 months of different surgeries and things going on, and it was over $600,000 just for a broken leg. So if you have those state minimums at 15,000, say, your insurance company is going to write you a check for $15,000, give it to you, and walk away. And then you're responsible to come up with the rest of that to make sure that you can pay for that person's injuries. So as a very minimum that we like to see for our clients, we like to write $250,000 per person in bodily injury. That is at least going to pay for, minor injuries. But anytime that something really serious happens, we recommend $1.5 million per person in bodily injury. This is especially important for homeowners because what happens is if you don't have the coverage to pay out a claim, your assets can be taken to pay that liability. So we want to make sure your assets are protected. Kind of going back to what I was saying with the homeowners policy, you've worked your entire life to get this home, to build up this asset and create this life. And the last thing I would want to see is, an auto accident causing your home to be taken from you. So for any homeowner out there, we like to see $1.5 million per person in bodily injury. And the way we do that is through what's called an umbrella policy. So an umbrella policy you can kind of think of as an excess liability policy. It's going to increase your liability limits across the board. So say we write $500,000 on your renter's policy, and then we add $1 million umbrella. That means you have $1.5 million of liability for personal liability. And then we write your auto at that 250, 500, which means 250,000 in bodily injury per person. And then we add the umbrella on, then you have 1.25 million in coverage for your auto. Umbrella policies, similar to auto policies, are an extremely affordable way in order to get that coverage. I think they're about $20 per month per $1 million. And it just gives you the peace of mind that everything you worked your whole life for is going to be protected if something happens. And we see it happen all the time, unfortunately. The biggest thing that we're seeing these days is anytime there's a head injury, a TBI, traumatic brain injury, we're seeing claim payouts that last 20, 30 years because people are affected, in their everyday life for the rest of their life when they have a head injury. So, if something like that happens to you, I, as your agent, just want to make sure that, you're not paying out of pocket for any of those expenses, because for a minimal extra premium per month, we can make sure your insurance pays it for you.
Very good. And with jump into the umbrella policy, so that policy kind of then sits over like an umbrella. So whether it's an auto, whether it's your home, whether it's your renters, that increase in liability, it's across the board if there's a something that you need coverage for. And that's why it's better to have that umbrella versus increasing maybe your auto insurance, because you could increase your auto, but then have something happen to your rental or your homeowner's policy and you don't have that coverage. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of going back to the idea of total protection. There's no point in getting one aspect completely dialed in and covered if there's a big gap somewhere else. So with the umbrella policy, it increases your liability across the board. So it boosts up all of your underlying limits is the technical term for it. So you can think of your underlying limits is what's written on your renter's policy, what's written on your homeowner's policy, and what's written on your auto policy. It increases all of those in increments of $1 million.
And when we're looking at how much of an umbrella policy that we should take out, do you have any rules of thumb that you go by, or any suggestions for how we should look at, when we're sitting down and going, okay, well, what's the worst thing that could happen to us or happen to somebody that we would need coverage for? How do you go about advising your clients and kind of how much coverage they would need?
So I'll give an example. I'll talk about my personal policies. So I'm a renter as well. I have $500,000 per person bodily injury on my auto policy. And then I add $1 million $1 million umbrella policy on top of that. to give me that 1.5 million that we were talking about earlier. And with the umbrella, it's all about your assets. So say that you own multiple homes and you have $3 million worth of assets. Your umbrella policy essentially is going to protect those. So if you own that much, we want to make sure you have that much coverage on your liability coverage to make sure that they can never be taken from you. Quick example, I was doing a review with a client yesterday, and they have about 8 rentals, I would say, in the Santa Cruz area. They had a $2 million policy. And after talking through everything, we were like, no, we need to bump that to at least 4 million. So it's all about, kind of assessing what you own, what you have to lose, and how we can make sure that that never happens. So umbrella policy limits are always based on the amount of assets that you have.
Got it. So looking at what assets you have and coinciding that with your limits to make sure that those assets are protected. And you're looking at real estate assets, bank account assets. What about retirement?
Exactly. Retirement, stock, anything that can be, potentially taken in an event of a large claim. We want to factor those in when coming up with our umbrella limit.
In California, they can garnish wages too, right? In the event that
25% for the rest of your life. Yeah. So for me, even though my assets aren't over $1 million yet, I want to make sure that my future earnings are never at risk. So by having that umbrella policy, I have the peace of mind of knowing that my agency is going to continue to grow. I'm going to continue to build my assets and throughout my life, and make sure that I'm never sacrificing 25% of my pay. A lot of us are self-employed individuals, and we're already paying so much in taxes from what we make, So imagine taking another 25% off the top of that, and you can't really live. It gets you to a point where, it's not doable. So I'm happy to pay for that umbrella policy every month because I know that I'm going to be taken care of.
And you mentioned, was it $20 per million per month was kind of your rough estimate for an umbrella?
Yeah, that's a rough estimate. We've seen a little fluctuation of umbrella pricing. It was lower about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. You could get it for like 12 to 15 per month. But the reason that we're seeing an increase in prices is that we're seeing claims where umbrella policies are having to be used. So that means that we're seeing claims that are going above and beyond the underlying limits, say on your auto. We're seeing those claims up in the $1 million, $2 million range happen a lot more frequently. Therefore, the umbrella policy comes in handy more often, and they're using that coverage to pay out those claims.
Now, would the umbrella policy cover you on those rebuild costs, or is that something different with regards to a homeowner's insurance policy?
So with umbrella, we're just talking liability. So as far as the rebuild costs go, that's actually called your dwelling coverage. Doesn't matter really which company you're with. If you look at that dwelling coverage amount, that's what you want to make sure adds up to $500 per square foot, depending on the size of your home. So the umbrella policy is just talking about liability.
Right. Understood.
Very good. With the renter situation we were talking about, where there was that kitchen fire. Say the entire complex burned down, that could have been a $2 million claim. And if you had an umbrella policy on top of your renter's liability, you're going to have the funds you need in order to pay something that big out.
So, great. And thank you so much. I mean, I know the umbrella is always such a complicated, it's an easy idea and kind of makes sense when you see umbrella, but I think we all see umbrella insurance. And we don't really know what it stands for.
Right.
So great explanation.
Yeah. Oftentimes you just think it boosts up every limit. No, but it's specifically for liability.
Great. So good. So, then kind of talking about the last item, when we first kind of talked about the different coverages, you mentioned a life insurance. And I know, life insurance, especially sometimes to early to mid-career professionals, I know at least for myself is I think I'm a little bit invincible. And so, when you're looking at life insurance and you're meeting with somebody who's younger, what is the benefits of getting life insurance now? And, kind of second question on that is, how, when we're looking at kind of policies again, or levels of life insurance, how do we go about thinking, okay, how much life insurance should we get, now, and then think about that into the future?
Definitely. So first off, we'll just talk about the benefits of getting life insurance at a younger age. So today is the youngest I'm ever going to be and probably the healthiest I'm ever going to be. So I will get the best rates the younger I am and the healthier that I am. So it's really important to get something in force when you're at that age where it's going to be a lot more affordable for you. I can use myself as an example. I have $1 million life insurance policy that I pay, I believe it was $31 per month for $1 million worth of coverage. If I was 50 years old, say, that would probably be in the $250 to $300 a month range. So as you get older, as health problems occur, the rates are going to increase on you. So it's really important to get something locked in at a young age. You're just planning ahead. You're being responsible for your future and for your family's future. One thing that I like to use for all homeowners is if you have a mortgage on your home, we would like to see a life insurance policy for at least the amount of your mortgage. So say you go into it with a spouse or a partner, and one of you doesn't make it home from work, just that ease of that financial burden of getting that home paid off is going to be huge. So to at least get that amount of coverage in is key. Another way to look at assessing how much coverage you need is looking at your annual income. And whoever you're going to name as your beneficiary. So your beneficiary is the person who receives the payout if something does happen to you. How long do you want them to be taken care of for? So if you're making $100,000 a year and say you want, 10 years worth of that income to go to your kids or to go to your spouse, we're looking at $1 million life insurance policy. There's hundreds of different policies out there and a ton of different carriers that offer them, and each one does something a little bit different. So, we have policies that are great for mortgage protection or for income replacement, and those are called term policies. So we write those all the time. It's the most affordable option to get into a life insurance policy. There's other options out there that we can use life insurance to create an asset. And we actually can do retirement planning and pretty much set you up for getting paid out while you're still alive by your life insurance policy with these different products. So, sometimes it's one or the other, sometimes it's a mix of both. It's all about an individual's situation, their family, and really their needs just to make sure that they're going to be okay. It's so sad how often we see GoFundMes set up for families who've lost a loved one and things like that. And GoFundMe is not life insurance. You could have taken care of that way ahead of time for as little as $15 a month for $1 million worth of coverage, just so you know that you're leaving your family in a good situation. Now, unfortunately, it's something that will eventually happen to all of us. So we can just plan ahead and make sure that the people that we do leave behind are going to be okay.
Now, you mentioned term in the life insurance and term. Could you describe what a term policy is? And I believe the other kind of most popular option would be a whole life policy, if I'm correct. Can you kind of describe the difference between those? Obviously I know that there's multiple other options there, but I think those are kind of the two, as I understand it, the two most popular that are out on the market.
Yeah, so with term policies, there's three different amounts of years that we can write them for. So we can write them for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. And the way that I like to look at term life insurance, it's kind of like renting a home. You're paying your premium, which is like your rent, to the landlord or the company every month to have that amount of coverage. And we can set it up for a 10-year term, a 20-year term, or a 30-year term. And most of the time we pick the amount of time based on your family. So say you just had your first kid and you want to make sure that your life insurance lasts at least until they're out of college, we'll write a 30-year term. Say you have, a 15-year-old kid, we only need 10 years of coverage just to make sure that they're okay. So the length of term is going to be based on your family situation. When it comes to whole life insurance, so that is a more expensive policy that will last until the day you pass away. So you could get it in force today and live till 99 years old, and that policy will still pay out at 99. It's more expensive because we know that no matter what, you're going to get that payout. These long-term policies, I like to think of them a little bit more like owning a home. You're putting this premium that you're paying, kind of like your mortgage, and it's creating an asset for you. It's actually building cash value. And there's products out there that we can use to not only have your cash value as the amount of money that's in that policy, but we can add interest to it. So we see these policies build over their lifetime, and you can double, triple, quadruple what you put into it to what the payout is at the end of the day.
Great. And now they have convertible options too, meaning you can start with a term policy and then convert to a whole life if that's something that you want to do too. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's actually the exact situation I'm in right now. I have it's a 10-year term, $1 million policy, because I know that my goal is to convert it into a retirement style policy. So as long as I can do that within 10 years, I'm going to set myself up to start getting paid by my life insurance when I'm ready to retire, which is an awesome option to get your coverage at the best rate you possibly can, because you're the youngest and healthiest you're ever going to be. So that's my rating I'm always going to have now, even if I convert it into something that's going to last until I'm 80, 90 years old.
Very good. And then I guess one final question is, I guess describe your service to a client, specifically when it comes to making a claim. You get into an accident, the kitchen catches on fire, something happens at your house where you need, a tree falls on your home. What do you as their insurance agent, what level of service do you provide, and how do you guide folks through that process that's, they're going through some trauma at that point to help alleviate that process?
Yeah, definitely. So I can actually use the CZU fire as a great example for this. We had about 45 clients who were evacuated. The second we got the notice that they were evacuated, the three of us at our agency got on the phones, and almost everyone that we were able to get in touch with, they were like, "Oh my gosh, you are the first person that's contacted me. Like, I never in a million years would think that my insurance agent would go, this above and beyond to make sure I'm okay." When it comes to having a claim, it can be the worst day of your life. And our job is to take off as much stress and as much of that burden for you as possible. So we're going to be there with you every step along the way. The apartment fire that happened to one of our clients that I just gave an example of, I've been on site at every meeting they've had with adjusters, with contractors, with people who are going to help them put their building back together. I've been there to make sure that if there was any gray areas or any questions, that I could be a guide to them to make sure that they're going to get the maximum payout for their claim. When it comes to your auto policies, it can be one of the scariest things that happens to you. You're in an accident, maybe you're taken to the hospital, you have no idea where your car is, that type of thing. As soon as we find out that something happened to you, we go to work to make sure that you're going to be put back together and that it's going to be as seamless and as painless as possible. You don't get that with a lot of agencies out there and a lot of companies out there. A lot of companies, they have online platforms where it's select your own coverage and, pay your premium, and you never talk to anyone. You never create that relationship. So that company, they really do see you as just another number. Our goal is to really get to know you and to get to know your family and to make sure that there's no gaps in your coverage, so that when a claim does happen, you have the coverage you need. And when that day does come, we're going to be there right behind you and making sure that you get through it and that, everything's going to be okay at the end of the day. So we really pride ourselves in treating our clients like family. We are the family-owned agency here, so we want to make sure everyone can feel that and feels like family too.
Great. Well, with that, I think we've covered most of the items, unless you had anything else that you feel you wanted to note to the group about, what they should look at coverage-wise for being young to mid-career professionals. And if not, I'd like to open it up to questions from the group, if there's anybody out there that may have some questions for Tanner.
Yeah, definitely. Just to kind of wrap it up, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to my appointment schedule in the chat. And what I would recommend doing is we can just sit down with you and just take a look at what you have going on. There's no obligation, there's no charge, anything like that. If you can get the coverage you need at a better rate somewhere else, I'll be the first person to tell you that. And we're very straightforward and straight up with everyone that we work with. So I'm going to go ahead and put that link in. And if anyone's interested in getting together, it could be on Zoom, it could be over the phone. We could go grab lunch, get a coffee, any way possible that I can be there just as a reference for you. I want to make sure that happens. So yeah, feel free to schedule a meeting at that link there. And then I'd love to answer any questions that anyone has.
Go ahead, Jody.
Looks like you have something over there.
Yeah, hi guys. Tanner, first off, thank you so much for sharing all this information. This has been really helpful. Kind of going back to like the very beginning of this lunch and learn event when you were talking about renters insurance and you mentioned about personal property and kind of adding that into the policy. My question specifically was, I guess, a little more clarity on what that means. And I'm thinking more of like, for example, like an engagement ring. Is that something that you would add into a renter's insurance policy? And like, if so, like, what's the best step to do that? Or what is the best coverage? Or I don't know, any information on that would be really helpful.
Yeah, totally. So when we have specialty items like that, whether it be a ring or say, one of a kind piece of art, these high value items that sometimes can be irreplaceable or thousands and thousands of dollars to replace, what we write is called a floater. And a floater is just a technical term for essentially a policy within a policy. So within your renter's policy, we can write what's called a jewelry floater, and that will cover an engagement ring. We do need appraisals for those just to make sure that if you do, even if you lose it, sometimes we can still get it covered. If it's stolen, we can get it covered. And if we have that appraisal, there's no questions asked. You get paid out exactly what that item is worth. So yeah, if you have a renter's policy already, I would recommend reaching out to whoever you're working with and talking about adding that jewelry floater. Or if you're just kind of starting out in the very beginning and like, oh, I need to get a renter's policy going, then we'd love to help you out, and we can always add a floater for those specific items.
Thanks, Tanner.
Of course.
Bibiana, did you have a question for Tanner?
Hi, Tanner. Thank you. I just wanted to get more clarity on, you mentioned transitioning the life insurance policy into a retirement vehicle. So I guess I wanted to get more information on that. And is it kind of like you guys are also financial advisors in that sense, like where you have securities license for that to, to help people with that retirement vehicle?
Yeah, definitely. So we are not securities licensed, but we do have a product that's called Indexed Universal Life Insurance. And that acts very similar to most retirement vehicles available on the market. But there's a lot of benefits that it has that those vehicles do not. Some of the biggest things are the tax implications. Because it's life insurance, you're not taxed on it when you withdraw the money. So that's a huge factor there. Also with these IULs, we call them for short, with these policies, the second you get it in force, you have the life insurance coverage. So say we set up $1 million IUL, the first time you pay that premium, if you pass away the next week, your family gets $1 million. With other retirement vehicles, you have to build up that policy or that vehicle to get to that point. So there's a lot of advantages that this product offers that no other product offers. I actually have a little kind of cheat sheet that shows all the different types of retirement vehicles out there and the pros and cons of each. I'd be happy to send your way. If you want to put your email in the chat, I can email it over.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for the question.
Great, thank you. Any other questions we have out there for Tanner before we wrap up today?
I've got a quick one. Tanner, thanks for coming on. The umbrella policy stuff was really interesting and something I definitely need to look into. I just have renter's insurance and then my car insurance. And so I was just kind of curious, like they're both with separate people. So are there benefits to bundling everything with one person? Like, do you save money that way? Or is it just kind of nice to have everything under just one person?
So that's kind of a two-part answer for you. The first part of it is by having everything with one company and one agent, you're avoiding gaps in coverage. So, we are farmers agents. So say you have your renter's policy with us and you have your auto with State Farm. there might be things, not covered on the State Farm policy or not covered on the farmer's policy that if you had them both with the same company, you're avoiding those gaps. So I'd highly recommend, working with the same agent for all of your policies. And the second part, and probably the more exciting part, is you do get discounts. So the more policies that you have with a company, typically the better premiums you're going to receive. So when we write a renter's policy, a life policy, an umbrella, and an auto for someone, that's like some of the most competitive pricing that's available.
Thanks.
Of course. All righty. Well, everyone, I want to thank you again for your time. So it's great being able to talk some shop and hopefully you learned a little something. And I would love to meet you in person someday and sit down and just make sure that you and your family are looking good moving forward.
Great. We'll make sure that Tanner's contact information is sent out with the wrap-up email so that if anybody does have any specific questions for Tanner, the products he offered, or even to build off a specific thing that he said, you'd be more than welcome to reach out to him. And I'm sure he would love to take some time to further explain the product and talk over what he has to offer. So with that, thank you from the Emerging Leader Circle. It's so great to have these. Our next one is going to be on May the 26th, Thursday. We're actually going to be talking about communication. So we have a communications coach who is going to be coming on here with us and going to be talking about both professional and personal communication and how we can make ourselves better communicators. So a little bit of soft skills next month. So visit us at the Emerging Leader Circle, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, like our Facebook group. And if you feel so inclined, we'd love to have you as a member, $100 for the year. And that money goes back to really making Santa Cruz County a better place for all of us, but more specifically for the underserved youth of Santa Cruz County, providing options for them to thrive and grow in our community. So with that, I'll wrap it up unless anybody has anything else to say, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Well, thanks again. Everyone have a great rest of your day. And I'd love to connect with everyone if you have the opportunity to. Let's make it happen.
Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Take
Tanner.
care.
Bye, everybody.